Hi there, and welcome to Gleaning and Gathering, the podcast here that looks at all kinds of things, including life and whatever's interesting to me right now. And I wanted to share a few things with you today about books. Books are my friends. I love books. I've got lots of them in my library, and I'm always looking for new thoughts and ideas. And one of the reasons why I love books so much is that when a person writes a book, they have spent hundreds, sometimes thousands of hours thinking about a concept or an idea and communicating that with people in a really helpful way. And so when you are reading a book, you are accessing all kinds of experience that you would never have the time in a single lifetime to be able to live out yourself. And so there are lots of things that you can learn by reading a book. And I've got a few that I wanted to share with you because I believe that leaders are readers. And so I'm always trying to find something that is shaping my mind or feeding my heart. And so I wanted to share a few of those today with you. One of the things that helped me a few years ago, I came across Tom Rath's Strength Finders 2.0. And in reading and taking the test of the Strength Finders test, it was incredibly eye-opening to me to help me understand myself and my team. At the time, we were in the middle of the strategic planning process through the Center for Congregations in Indianapolis, and the Life Together Strategic Planning Initiative was incredibly helpful. And one of the things that it did was it helped us to have the resources to have this test, take this test as a congregation. And so we did that, and then we shared our results at a retreat that we had together and guessed what each person's strengths were. It was a fun time, and it was a time that was really insightful for all of us. But there's a book called Strength-Based Leadership, and it's been incredibly helpful to me. I used it in the Nehemiah Discipleship Training Program this past year for our summer training, and just really learning about the four different kind of areas where leaders really can add value to a team. You know, we all lead in different ways. And I think one of the misconceptions is that leaders just come in one size and that's it. You know, you're either a leader or you're not. But the truth of it is that everyone can be a leader. And so in this book, the Strengths-Based Leadership book, he points out that really there's kind of four main ways in which you can lead and your strengths can be used. And one is in executing, one is in influencing, one is relationship building, and another in the area of strategic thinking. And so depending on those kind of four quadrants, he kind of focuses in on the ways in which a leader leads. And that resource has been incredibly helpful in terms of really helping me to understand myself and my team and the way to work with my team. The other book relating to team and leadership that has been incredibly helpful to me is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. It's a book that you can get the theory version or you can get the parable version. The parable kind of fleshes out the idea that is also, I forget the name of it, but it's related to the 5 dysfunctions of a team. But it really, the idea of the 5 dysfunctions is that the basis of the pyramid is trust. And so the first dysfunction is an absence of trust among team members. And so essentially it stems from their unwillingness to be vulnerable within the group. And so team members that are not genuinely opening up about their mistakes, their weaknesses, they don't trust one another. And so as a result, nothing can really get done. The next level up, if you're able to build trust, is that there's this fear of conflict. And, you know, we've all been in those meetings where it's like, okay, does everybody agree on this? Sure, we all agree. Nobody's going to disagree. And so teams that lack trust are incapable of engaging in unfiltered, passionate debate about ideas. And that's necessary. You've got to have conflict if you're going to get the best ideas out on the table. And so he talks a little bit about that. The third layer, or the third dysfunction of a team, is lack of commitment. A lack of healthy conflict is a problem because it ensures that the kinds of commitment that we make will never be real. And so without having aired our opinions in the course of passionate and open debate, team members rarely, if ever, buy in and commit to decisions. So they may feign agreement during the meeting, like, yeah, sure, let's do that. But they're not committed to it. And that comes out in the process. And because of a lack of commitment and buy-in, team members develop an avoidance of accountability. And that's the fourth dysfunction. And so without committing to a clear plan of action, even the most focused and driven people often hesitate to call their peers on actions and behavior that seem counterproductive to the good of the team. So the last of the 5 dysfunctions is inattention to results. And so failure to hold one another accountable creates this environment where there's just no attention to the results. And so what happens is that people put their own egos, career development, whatever else ahead of the needs of the team. And so that's really, if you examine your team, you will probably find that you're falling into at least one of those. And so it's been incredibly helpful to me to understand our teams and team dynamics because no team is perfect. We all have people, and none of us have perfect people working with us. There aren't any perfect people, and so trying to work with folks that are broken and have their issues means that we've got to recognize these dysfunctions and be able to address them if we're going to be able to deal with it properly. Another book that's been incredibly helpful to me is It's Not About the Money, and it's written by Terry Munday, Munday, and it was recommended to me by my friend, Brother Walter Hedstrom, a few years ago. He mentioned this book to me, and I got it, read it, and one of the things that has been incredibly helpful to me is understanding why people give and understanding the dynamics in giving. One of the things that he points out in chapter 1 is that by the age of 20, the average American has been exposed to 1 million advertisements. They're bombarded with all kinds of media that's out there and all kinds of messaging. And a lot of that messaging is really good. And so, when they go to give, they're thinking about, what kind of impact is my giving going to make? Here was a startling statistic to me. 10% of evangelical Protestants give nothing at all to any form of charity, while 36% give away less than 2% of their income, and only about 27% tithe. I thought that was fascinating. But there's a reason why people don't give. There's a reason why people often hold back from giving, and one of those is that about a third of U.S. adults have less than positive feelings toward America's charitable organizations. Only 10% of the respondents believe that charitable organizations are honest and ethical in their use of donations. That's an incredible statistic. Only 10% believe that they will use that donation well, which means that 90% do not, and only a third have a positive feeling towards charitable organizations. And so he goes in to talk about, the issue of giving and charitable giving in particular, that for people, it's not about the money. It is all about the relationship. And so as you are cultivating relationships with people, genuine relationship, that there is no lack of resources. There's no lack of money, but it's not about the money. And a lot of times people don't understand that. And so it's been incredibly helpful to me reading that book and also being mentored by guys like Zach Clark, leadership and development coaching. Had the opportunity to sit under his leadership for 2.5 years. Incredibly bright fundraiser, and just incredibly helpful to learn some of these things that I wouldn't have otherwise known. And whether you like it or not, if you're involved in leadership, you will be involved in raising money. And so understanding these dynamics is incredibly important if you are going to be effective. Another book that's been a friend to me is Gordon MacDonald's A Resilient Life. Subtitle, You Can Move Ahead No Matter What. This book is one that I have come back to again and again. I've got a highlighted, marked up copy that I keep on my shelf, and he breaks this up into several sections, but the whole idea is he thinks about life as a race, and resilient people are committed to finishing strong. That's his first chapter. And resilient people run inspired by a big picture view of life. Resilient people run free of the weight of the past. Resilient people train to go the distance, and they run in the company of a happy few. And the last really 4 chapters, he talks about friendship. And it's an important concept that I did not realize how important it was when I was a young leader. What I have found in life, in ministry, and leadership is that many of the men in leadership and in ministry that I've known are incredibly lonely. And they do not have good, solid friendships that are deep. And I know that's a very broad brush, but the higher you go, the less likely people are willing to call you on things. And the less likely they are to tell you hard truths that you need to hear, truths that you need to hear about yourself, that you're arrogant, or that you talk too much, or that you eat too much, truths that you probably need someone in your life who will be that iron on iron, that will care enough about you to look you square in the eye and say, that is not the way it is. But in leadership, the further we go, the less and less we have people that are close to us, that we keep close to us, that are willing to tell us hard things, and that are willing to care enough about our souls that we can take that in and really hear it. So there are a lot of people that know the public us, but who is it that is watching for our soul? And so A Resilient Life really looks at that. It's a book that Gordon MacDonald wrote later on in his life. He is most commonly known for his book, Ordering Your Private World. But I believe this book is actually probably better than Ordering Your Private World because this is after Gordon MacDonald crashed and burned, so to speak, after moral failure in his life, after coming back from that and really looking at the big picture. There's some things there that I think would be incredibly valuable for every leader to take stock of, and to read it prayerfully, and to read it reflectively, and to look at your own life and see where you're at. Another book that I enjoy using as a family is called Every Moment Holy, and it is a book written by Douglas McKelvey. It was recommended to us by some friends. And it's just a beautiful little book that we keep at home on the shelf and pull off whenever we have a moment that we want to just invite God into and pray over. It's just such a fascinating little book of liturgies, and I love liturgies anyway. But liturgies for just what we would call the common moments. He has liturgies for labor and vocation. So there's a liturgy for first responders, a liturgy for medical providers, for changing diapers, for working with wood, stone, clay, and metal. There's liturgies for creation and recreation. One that's for arriving at the ocean, for leaving on holiday, for those who are sleeping in tents, for planting of flowers, for gardening, before beginning a book, a liturgy for competitors. Just really some great moments. Liturgies of blessing and celebration for those gathered on the eve of a wedding, for a purposeful gathering, for feasting with friends. That's one of my favorites. I enjoy when we have a group of friends over reading that before we have a meal together. A liturgy for welcoming of a new pet. When we just got Levi, he's our golden retriever puppy that's fast growing into a massive dog. We had a little liturgy welcoming Levi into our family. It was beautiful. And then liturgies of petition and provision a ritual for morning coffee, for a sick day, before a medical procedure, for nights and days of doubt, for those with a sudden burden to intercede, a liturgy for dating or courtship, for giving, for shopping, for paying bills, for first waking. There's liturgies for sorrow and lament. This is one in which he has actually a second volume. There's a whole volume of liturgies for sorrow. But in this first volume, there's one for inconsolable homesickness, for feelings of infirmities, for the death of a dream, and for those who weep without knowing why. And it's just beautiful. And really, the whole idea of practicing the presence of God and of seeing God in every moment and seeing every moment as holy is just beautiful to me. And I enjoy sharing that together with our family and just inviting God into those moments. And so books for me are friends. They're friends, many of them that I come back to again and again. I have literary mentors. And so Wendell Berry is one of my literary mentors, as well as Gordon MacDonald. I've read most of what they've written, and I'm trying to learn from them as people. And it's, I think, helpful to have personal mentors that you can speak with and talk with, and that they can have a two-way conversation. But there's, I think, value in having literary mentors who speak into our lives through the things that they have written. And whether that is long past or whether that is in the near past, having those books that give us things to chew on and think about, that shape our minds and that form our hearts in ways that I think are helpful. At least it's helpful to me. It has been helpful to have those moments where I come back to a book again, open it up, and am reminded of some truth that God may have showed me in times past, but that I need to be reminded of. And so these are some books that that I'm reading. I would love to hear what you're reading. There's lots more, and I wish we had more time to be able to share and talk about those sometime. But I do think that reading is something like investing. Investing our time in listening to and thinking about thoughts that others have thought and taken time to put together into book form is time invested. Many times the investment is not immediately apparent, or the result of that investment, I should say, is not immediately apparent. But over time, it has a compounding effect. And so as you're continuing to add those truths to the body of truth that you already know, your mind opens up and your world expands. And there are paradigms that you find that you didn't even know existed before. There are ideas or concepts that you didn't know were there. And now suddenly they're a part of your reality. And so I just want to encourage you to read and to grow your mind and think about the things that are good and true and noble. And if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. And may God help us all to become more like Jesus every day. I would love to hear from you. If you've got a book that you're reading right now, or thoughts on the books that I've shared here, I would love to hear your feedback. And as always, for Gleaning and Gathering, God bless.